can't hear Claire.
Recording. We're gonna get started with Andrena, subgenera. Whenever you guys want to. We don't have Rob today, and I'm not sure if David has joined us. Oh, I think he did.
Okay.
So we have all of our general players in.
Good. So David, we can use your pictures again, very likely, and looks like we'll have the no pronodal ridge situation coming up. It looks like we have a light showing, probably because everyone is going to be on vacation. But Mike, maybe talk, if you would, about Ellison's find of the green osmia, just so that people, I think it's fun. It's a super fun find.
Yeah, I've never met Ellison, but we communicated a lot. They picked up in Lee County, Virginia, which, if I'm right, that's extreme southwest Virginia?
In the mountains, yeah,
in the
mountains.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's extreme southwest, but it's in the mountains. I would have said central, along the West Virginia border.
And this was he picked up an Osmia illinoensis, which is a rare bee, plain and simple. It's never been common, and people find one or two. It's not like people have ever found a series. It's never been in a trap nest, so we don't really even know what its host plant is. But and until recently, we thought it was a more western species, and now it's this is the second record in Virginia, I think.
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. Second location, time, place.
Yeah.
He caught 3, I think, right?
Yeah.
At this
and then I think Rob found one in Georgia. I think so.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, a couple of years ago. And then we've found several in Missouri over the years, and one just last year, and then a couple in southeast Nebraska. So it's around, but it's one of those osmias. It's a mystery. It has hooked hairs on the mouth parts, and many bees that have hooked hairs on the mouth parts are specialists on some kind of boraginaceae group. But but there are exceptions to that.
Yeah, and they seemed like it was in association with barrens areas and dry ridges in both the Virginia cases. I don't know about the others. Are you getting them in residual prairie? Oh, Mike, you've gone. I don't know.
Okay, I'm back.
There we go. You're back. Okay.
Yeah, in the Ozarks, it's a remarkably similar habitat to what Ellison described in Virginia. It's these dry, rocky, calcareous habitats.
Yeah. Right. So it could be a weird Phacelia. So, okay. Well, anyway, I thought it was neat. And I think one of the nice things about bee people coming together is to find out those kinds of natural history things. So to dive back in, well, I'll flip up, at least for now, unless someone wants to do it differently, I'm going to flip up Mike's genus guide. We have David here who can do some illustrations. And we're finishing up couplet 18. And I believe in there is a split between basically things with, let's see, do I have this right? Yeah. Things that had a dorsiventral ridge, so the collar, with ears, or the ridges, those kinds of things, and things that don't. So this is the pronotum entirely absent. So David, maybe you could show that, and then Mike, you could, take it from there.
I can also, I have this. David, if it's easy for you in the computer sharing to do it, if not, I also have it up and we can.
Because again, this is a tricky feature in terms of presence or absence. So but showing the absence.
So, right. So the previous weeks, we've been dealing with Andrena subgenera, the species of which have a modified pronotum. Like Sam said, there's either a ridge or a humeral angle or both in most cases. And now we're done with those. We finished with those. And the rest of the eastern U.S. Andrena that we're going to be covering do not have a dorsiventral ridge or humeral angle. The pronotum is just, we'll just call it simple. And there's no modifications. And I think David may have an image.
Yeah, Claire, are you there? Why can't I share?
You should be able to share. I made you
I know. I felt so honored by that, but then I only have a
Should I
button that
turn
says-
off? Is that going to
know.
matter? I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, I've stopped.
Okay.
And if you don't, then I'll just screen share from.
Yeah, I've just got a different. Here, let me try one more time. Oh, screen one. Let's try here. Tell me if that happens. No. Okay,
No.
you can use whatever you've got, but before the end of this, there's something I want to share. Well, we'll get to it.
So you're sharing, right, Claire?
I'm sharing this. I don't have all of his beautiful, like the smug mug up. If you want to put that link into the chat, David, I can.
Sure.
But yeah, let me get down to the right spots. No.
Okay. Good. Now, I don't know what species that is. David may know. But if you look at that pronotum, it's just smoothly curved from one side to the other without a ridge or without a humeral angle. It's just a nice smooth collar of sorts. And nothing, there's a very, very faint groove that it sometimes doesn't show up because of the lighting, but most of them, they'll have that. So there's nothing dramatically different about that one. So that's what all the rest of the Andrena groups we're going to be looking at. That's what the pronotum will basically look like.
Like this, all
just
round.
like that. Yep. Smooth and no projections, no. And again, that's a good shot because the head's been pulled away, and you can fully see the pronotum, and that's often not the case.
So you can show the one. It may be useful, Claire, to show the one with the collar that has a ridge and ears, or
here's one with a little bit of everything. This has got it all.
So the more Andrena, the more Andrena you look at, the more this pronotum thing will make sense and be better appreciated. It just takes a while. You need to look at a lot of specimens.
Yeah. It's almost always one of the first things I look at,
totally,
just to make sure that I'm my thinking is in ones that have it, in ones that don't, because it's a less common overall state, and so you're going to more quickly be able to jump to an ID instead of having to slog through a bunch of other things.
Right.
Because once you got it, it's pretty clear, and that's you want clear identification features, and if not, you have other options in Discover Life to wend your way through.
So once you've made that decision that the pronotum is normal and unmodified, it's just the very beginning, because there are at least in the eastern U.S., 13 or so subgenera, at least the way we currently classify them, that have that characteristic. So it doesn't really, it's just the first step along the way, but it's like Sam said, it's fundamental and something you need to look at.
All right, on to 19A.
Yes. So this is one of those couplets I sort of apologize for, because if you look at the first part of it, there are three things that you're looking for. The pleura, that's the side of the thorax in general, and the propodial triangle, and then the propodial corbicula. And we've talked about all these things, with some of the other subgenera. But if you've got a specimen in hand and the pronotal collar is normal and unmodified, then one of the next things to do is look at these three, see if these three features are present or not. And if if they are, it narrows the field considerably, because there's only a handful of subgenera in the East that have a really reticulate propodial triangle, an incomplete propodial corbicula, and have the side of the thorax, the pleura, roughened and rugose reticulate, which is kind of wrinkled.
Yeah.
So you want all three of those things, not just one of them, but you need to, if your specimen has all three of those things, then you move on to 20.
Yeah. So I'll just interject here
Yeah.
that if you see what I'm doing, which is highlighting things, and so you can use red letters or bold or these things, I find it useful in guides to have my own little notes like this. Like then that becomes little memory things. Oh yeah, that's the three things, rather than having to read everything again. It's like got. And I can jump because of those. I can jump pretty quickly because now I know what that allows me to remember what that character is like without having to. It seems like not a big deal, but then you don't have to read the whole thing to get it. And other notes too.
Yeah, and that's especially true with couplets that are lengthy and kind of wordy, and yeah, I bet that's good. Yeah, make notes on it. It's critical. I mean, Wallace LaBerge, who did so much of the Andrena work in the U.S., his original papers that he published on all these things, after he passed away, John Marlin inherited them, and he was making notes all over the place on his original publications. So, you know, it worked for him, and it worked for everybody else, I think. So anyway, let's say we do have a specimen that's got all three of those things, and they're usually quite easy to see. It's not, they're not hidden really. They're pretty obvious. Well, and then we move to 20, and then we encounter one of the subgenera that, to my way of thinking anyway, is a challenge. And what you're looking for, are the facial fovea, which we talked about before. And in this group, the subgenus Trachandrena, most of the species have the facial fovea narrowed below in a, maybe not dramatically, but quite obviously narrowed or constricted in the lower half, more or less, and broadened above. And that's the only subgenus in our geography that has facial fovea like that. So if you see those, that's it. You've got that's the subgenus. However, there are, in the East anyway, there are 3 species that are in Trachandrena that have more or less normal facial fovea. And those are kind of the tricky ones, because they start to look like some other things. So if you see the facial fovea and they're narrowed, I mean, bingo, you've got a Trachandrena. At least by my counting, there are at least 13 species in the eastern U.S. So it's a fairly large group, and I don't know what you think, Sam, but I think some of them are fairly challenging.
Yeah. So maybe this is I'll just interject this, and I'm going to flip to. They're so challenging that I find it difficult when dealing at a species level with using a key, because to my mind, it's often a presentation of a number of different features that I want to kind of go through. So I can send this to people, or Claire may already have it up there, but here's the species in our region of Trachandrena females, and then there's just a whole series of features here that you can see, many of which are just not like black and white. So, and then I highlight like the key features for separating out the species, and then also have what species they're similar to. And then I actually use this all the time, and like, maybe I've got that wrong, because it's just really confusing at the species level. So we won't go into it, but that's I'm a Discover Life person, right? So you can see, like, when I do this, that feel like the Discover Life method is too simple-minded.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm agreeing with you, Mike, 100%.
So if you don't have specimens that have the facial fovea narrow below, but they have those 3 other features that were in couplet 19, you think, well, it doesn't fit this Trachandrena stuff. But remember, there are 3 additional species in the East, and they're fairly common, some of them, that have facial fovea that look more or less normal. And so for those, when you move to couplet 21, you have to, this took me a long time to get this figured out right, but the second tergite has, and this is true of most bees, but has a basal area and an apical area in terms of general appearance. And the basal area and apical area tend to be divided by more or less of a kind of a drop in elevation, for lack of a better word. It's usually pretty, with Andrena, it's usually pretty obvious. The basal area and the apical area are divided by what looks like a line under the scope. When you look super closely, the basal area is usually a little higher, and the apical area is a little lower. So anyway, it's pretty obvious. But the trick is judging the relative lengths of those apical and basal areas and how they relate to each other. So that's another way to separate these other Trachandrenas from other subgenera that appear later in the key. So that takes some time. I mean, is the apical area, as long as the basal area, or is it half as long, et cetera, et cetera. So this becomes, in most of the Trachandrena keys, I mean, sooner or later you have to deal with that. And yeah. I forget, I suppose it's on Discover Life. I forget if it is or not, but it must be.
It is, but again, I refer to that Excel thing because, yes, you can get the extremes in terms of like, oh, it's only half, or oh, it's about 90% is filled.
Right.
But there's a lot of sort of shady middle ground, some variation. Yep. And, people should remember that Trachandrena was something that the old timers worked out the species level, and there may be other species, and that may be some of the stuff that trips us up to be worked on. I don't know that anyone's worked on Trachandrena since Wally, and I don't know who was the other person. So. Yeah. So, but, we have the classic stuff from LaBerge in Discover Life, and then we have this other thing because I didn't leave the guide or Wally's or anyone else's feeling like, oh yeah, obviously that's this. It was like too many sort of like maybe I see that.
Sam,
yeah.
Can we maybe put up a specimen that shows this condition?
Oh, yeah. So let me, well, actually, I'll should have some. I'll go. I'm going to let Claire show the guide here, and I'm going to pull up some Trachandrena species, and most of them should have a good view of this impressed area. That's a great idea, Claire. Thanks.
So there are some obvious species of Trachandrena that are really, I mean, they just jump out. Andrena nuda, the scutum is almost devoid of punctures and hairs. It's unlike any other Andrena, really, in our neck of the woods. That's a conspicuous one, and there are a few others. But they're all, I mean, if you're out collecting in the spring, you're gonna come across Trachandrena. I mean, there, a lot of species, and some of them are very common. Most of them are pollen generalists, and they're in a lot of different places. So you are going to encounter them without doubt. So
you said that there's in the east there's Andrena nuda. What were the other ones that are just like the atypical Trachandrena couplet?
I think Andrena rugosa is another one.
Yep.
That's fairly distinctive and common. And then there's Andrena hippotes, which has orangish reddish legs, and it's the only one in that subgenus like that. So there are a handful that are pretty straightforward, but then you get to others like Ceanothai and Forbesii and Miranda, and some of these others that are sort of iffy.
I'll tell you that Hypodes thing though. There is another species. Now it's not a Trachandrena, but it has a complete corbicula, a complete propodial triangle, very reticulate, often with a little bit of a line. Is it Iomelissa that has red legs that shows up? Or is that the right one?
Imitatrix.
No, well, imitatrix is less of a problem, I think.
Okay.
Although sometimes it did. No, it's Iomelissa or the other I one. Not Eleni. It might be Iomelissa, and maybe it doesn't occur because it's a woodland species, and it's like characteristic. I'm on alert when I see it's small, a little smaller, but it's like, oh, or is this Hypodes? So anyway, I can try and track that one down too. So go ahead. I'm still looking. I'm getting some good examples here of the propodial triangle. Ready.
Okay. Are there any questions, Claire, in the chat?
Let me check screen so I can see. No, but David was wondering if we wanted to look at his the Western his identikit key. I'm wondering if you want to wait till we have Rob, because I think Rob will think that that's really cool, and I want to hear what Rob has to say about your approach there, David. If that's cool with you.
Yeah. No, I think that would be good. If I could talk, I want to talk to Mike too, maybe at the end of this session, if he's got a moment. Cool.
We can do that.
I've got a series of Trachandrena here, 3 species that show this impressed area in slightly different ways.
Oh, good.
So if we want to flip, then we can go just so you see some variation. Are we ready, Claire? Okay. Back to the screen. Okay, well, we'll start with Nuda, and I'm just showing the abdomen stuff here, and it's sort of extreme. Did I share? No, not yet. Okay, 1 sec.
Yeah, that's a good
and
one.
Yeah, it is. It's okay. That is not Nuda, but here. So here is like the impressed area. This is so unusual, but this is helpful in Trachandrena. This impressed area line here, we can blow it up, is running almost all the way over the whole segment. So, like 90% of the T2 is impressed or lower or that.
Apical area.
Yeah. So that's extreme. You can see here that's very reticulate propodial triangle and this line across here, which depending on which kind of guide you use is often a character, because I'm often like, oh, maybe I'm looking at imitatrix here. I'm looking to see if there's a line right across a carina, raised line, that separates the upper face to the lateral face. It's not super clear here, but this forms a triangle that bleeds over the edge. Trachandrena pretty much consistently have that line. And then other species that you might say, well, maybe, usually don't. Right. So Ceanothene, here's a less, it's still very extensive compared to, there we go. Compared to other species. And you see it's obvious, but relatively subtle. So here's this line, okay? This area is slightly lower in terms of elevation than the back part. Most species, that line is right there on the rim. Here in this group is where you get into this kind of stuff. So even seeing it 50% back should put you on pretty much alert that I probably have a Trachandrena in just, working on these things. And then we have Spargiana, and you can see here how this is another good for species level, how much pitting is on there. What's that pattern? You see it's very light there, but here again, it's extensive, but not at that 90% level. I could maybe find some more, but I don't have any 50%. So you get the idea.
Yep.
And you can
That's
see
good.
there's impressed areas in the lower ones too, but these are mostly ignored.
And you've noticed one of those specimens had tergal fascia laterally.
Right.
And that becomes an important species level character.
Yep.
In a lot of cases.
And look at the density here on the
Oh, yeah.
Ceanothete. Like those pits are almost all touching each other. So there's these good characters. There's just like little species pairs that are like similar that you get into a knot over. I'll just look and see if I think I have Hippodes in here. We can see the red legs, if I have it. Oh, look, there we go. And yeah, so you can see, so it's not like bright red, but all these lower parts, the tarsal segments, a little bit in the femur, these are reddish. And that's unusual. Let me look and see if I have Iomelissa, because I think that's the other red one, because I do spend some time finding those and like, oh, I better be sure about this. So yeah, so here's Iomelissa's female. These are and then the males too. And the males in Hippodes also have this, but if we click here, you can see this is very Hippodes-like, but it's a different species and different species group.
Yeah, different subgenus.
Yeah, and here's the female again, making some presentations, particularly in the male. So the female has, we'll get to it, but has these, won't have all these characters, but the reddish legs are often like, oh, that's Hippodes. And I find in the males that I have to be careful because sometimes I have this species, I have both of them.
Yeah, that Iomelissa is really rare over here. We hardly ever see it.
It's not super common, but where we find it is in big bottomland forests mostly, and malaise traps for whatever reason seem to be like the jam for finding them. So I'm not quite sure. There may be a canopy element. It's a little mysterious, but we probably have 20 records and sometimes long strings from one place.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it's almost all bottomlands, or let's call it rich woods. Okay, so let's go back to the we're never getting through these, but through the guide.
So yeah, the next choice in if you're go ahead, Sam.
So can you talk about this weak fovea thing? So I'm not even sure that I have ever paid attention to that.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure. That's one of those things that it used to be a note, in my just like the notes you have, and it's never mentioned. It's not mentioned in any of Wally's things, but it's something that most Andrena don't have, but all Panergynes do. So it's this little blemish, a little thing on most Trachandrena females on the lateral side, lateral margin of T2, and easy to overlook. Often the legs obscure it because they're pressed up against the pterygites. Yeah. But it's a small, for lack of a better word, blemish. It's not really a fovea in that it's indented or anything like that, but I suppose technically maybe it would be a fovea. But anyway.
This also occurs in some of the red abdomen glossums, something like that.
Yep. And I don't know what it's all about, but most Andrena don't have it. And
is there a spherical?
I don't think so. So anyway, I mean, maybe that shouldn't even be in there. I don't know. I've toyed with thinking about taking that out because I'm not sure it helps anybody. But if
you could have it. You could document it as a note, and then they'll take it seriously.
Yeah. So if we're convinced we don't have Trachandrena, then we move on to couple of 22, and there you've got the only two other subgenera in the eastern U.S. that have a really reticulate propodial triangle that have incomplete propodial corbicula and have the thorax, the pleura, the side of the thorax, rough and reticulate, rugose. And we've talked about this first one before, Plastandrena. It's the group that has a very modified hind tibial spur. And I think it was last week, or the week before, David had some really nice images. And most of you probably remember that. But it's you need some magnification to see it, because sometimes the legs are pressed up in funny ways. But once you see it, you don't forget it. It's pretty distinctive. The spur is strongly curved, and then towards the base of the spur, where it attaches to the tibia, there's a translucent wing that comes off of it. And there you go. Yeah, perfect. And that's
wait. Are we see? Is someone showing a picture?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Andrena criticae. Yeah, and
so
there
we
go.
go.
Yep. And
but
you know,
but it's not. But I don't think it's criticae. I think we decided that last week. But it shows the spur. Yeah, criticae would be have a long banana-like spur, I think.
Yeah, it'd be more curved. I did not thought maybe it was a viewing angle.
Yeah, this looks like a macra spur. So anyway.
So
we sent some keys.
Yeah.
So in the East, when you see that, it's there's only that one species that we have. Plastandrena criticae, unless I'm forgetting something, which could be. And it's a big bee. That's a good size, 12 millimeters or so, and it's easily, it's very roughened and reticulate. It looks like a lot like a Trachandrena until you look closely.
It also has a very unique, I think, propodial triangle. Like a lot of times I can go like, oh, let's see if I can find it here. That maybe it doesn't show up really well on this, but the raised lines have a pattern to them that a lot of times I just see that and I know I'm looking at criticae. Let's see if I can have a picture maybe of the spurs. Probably not, because they're usually hidden. Well, so it is there. Oops. But it's mostly hidden. So it's this long banana-like thing.
You're not showing your screen.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I didn't share there. So it's hidden, as they often are, because they're on the interior side of the legs, but it's often got this long, the thing that shows up is it's very long, very curved, very banana and thin-like. And then I look at the propodial triangle.
And there's a good view of the pleura too, by the way. And that's, so that's what we mean by in that couple of words, kind of reticulate punctate. It's not smooth. And so in reference back to couple of 19, that's what we were referring to.
Yeah. So we'll go back to that guy.
And this is a very common species, at least in the Midwest. I mean, you run across it a lot.
We're sort of at the edge, but we get it regularly-ish, particularly in the mountains.
So if you're a couple of 22 and your hind tibial spur is normal, but it's just going to be Scrapteropsis. And this is a subgenus. It's always kind of giving me fits. It's hard. There just seems to be no single character that really nails down that subgenus in the East. So it's almost by process of elimination. It can't be Trachandrena, can't be Plastandrena. Well, got to be Scrapteropsis. There are a number of species in that subgenus. One of them, Imitatrix, is just arguably, at least in the Midwest, is probably the most common Andrena. in spring Andrena that we find. It's just everywhere, and often super abundant and variable, like Sam alluded to a little bit ago. It's sometimes the legs are orange, sometimes they're partly orange, sometimes they're dark. So it's a very variable species, and it's widespread across the country. Maybe it's a complex of species. I don't know, but it's.
And I'm tricked a lot by it.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And the other thing that I basically have given up on is telling Morrisonella from Imitatrix. So I always, usually I'm blending the two, because I'm like, I just can't see, sometimes it's supposed to be like internal hairs in the corbicula, forked or not. And it's like, come on, there's got to be something more than that. But that's what it has. And then sometimes it's like, maybe I see it, maybe not. But I've never gotten a like, oh yes, this is totally different. It has to be Morrisonella. So
I agree. I think I've seen one or two that I feel totally match the descriptions of Morrisonella. But even then, I think, and even Wally LaBerge's treatment of Morrisonella, he acknowledges that, well, there's some issues. He doesn't take them anywhere, but he says these are possibilities that it could.
And I believe he does not present any way to tell the males apart.
No.
If I remember right. Yeah. So it's like, okay, we need someone to look at this, add it to the list.
Yeah, and the reason is, like Sam said, Imitatrix is so common and so abundant. Morrisonella may be part of that complex, and there may be additional forms. No one's ever looked at that complex molecularly that I know about. It would be an interesting project.
Yeah.
No lack of specimens.
Yep. Do you want to say anything about any of these species in this group? Otherwise, I'll flip back to the guide.
Well,
we don't have to go in. I'm just saying. Is there something to talk about, or is this like messy? You get to the species level and go from there. They all have a little issues. The Atlantica alleghaniensis thing.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a challenging group.
Need a revision.
So those three subgenera, Trachandrena, Plastandrena, Scrapteropsis, those are the ones that have a really rough reticulate propodial triangle, and also most of the rest of the propodium as well. Then the incomplete propodial cubicula and the roughened reticulate punctate pleura. Okay, that's it. Just those three subgenera. Now we move on to couplet 23, and we look at the malar space. And this is a case where it's obvious. I mean, in this group, and there are only a couple species, there's no doubt there's a malar space there, and it's conspicuous. And it's interesting. This is the subgenus Conandrena. They're specialists on things in the blueberry family, Ericaceae, and there are a number of other blueberry specialists or Ericaceae specialists that also have a elongate malar space. So it's kind of interesting.
That are not Andrena.
Right. Oh yeah, they're Cleides validus, and some others. So it's kind of curious. So Bradley eye that's the one I always have to come across, and it's in the upper Midwest. I don't know where you find it out there, Sam.
It's throughout the area. You can see I'm showing a picture here, and that's not super common, but from Maryland north, and I think in the mountains south, and it's on blueberries.
Yeah, and then in the upper Midwest, it's in bogs at leatherleaf and some other things in the blueberry family. But it's up in the Upper Great Lakes region. It's a bog bee. I mean, that's where you find it, and in marginal places where there are blueberries as well. So pretty cool bee, an easy one to pretty much for an Andrena. It's a pretty easy one to recognize.
Yeah, let me get, I think I have a probably a good shot. At least you can sort of see the, so there's the eye, the mandible is way down here. So there's this a really, again, for an Andrena over here, you can maybe see it better. That's huge for an Andrena. And here's this very long face
Yep.
and very narrow fovea. The nearest thing would be Carolina. I think in look and feel, but then it's got a big horseshoe collar or
Right.
a pronotal ridge.
Yep, very different subgenus. So this is a cool one. So if the rest of the Andrena do not have a malar space anywhere near Bradley eye, and if there's a malar space present on any of the other Andrena, it is extremely limited. Nothing like that. So that one really stands out.
Yeah, although Carolina can be, I mean,
well, but we've already,
but yeah. Oh, within the smooth.
Yeah. So a couple of 24, we because of the questionable nature of the pronotum of Andrena violae, it shows up again. So Andrena violae showed up earlier in the key, the part of the key that had the, or we're talking about species that had the modified pronotum and the humeral ridge. And because it's so iffy, it comes out twice. So we've already dealt with violae, but it's a super conspicuous, huge blown up Clypeus, very distinctive bee. So if we bypass that one, then we come to Cappaert 25, where this is a really interesting group. Again, getting into size as a lead character in the couplet. So we're talking small bees or large bees. And for the most part, this is a useful distinction. Most Micrandrena, subgenus Micrandrena, tend to be small. There are some exceptions, but in general, if you've got an Andrena and it's what you and I would call small, smaller than 8 millimeters, the odds are really good that it's going to be in the subgenus Micrandrena. And some of them are smaller than that, 6 millimeters. They're definitely small. There are a couple things that are similar, but we've already covered them because they have pronotal ridges. So Micrandrena have a very simple pronotum, no ridge, no angles, and they're little. And the other thing, I don't know if we can show the wing, but another useful feature is the where on the front wing, the arrangements of one of the veins with relation to the stigma. I don't know if we can.
Yeah, let's see.
It's hard to describe, but easy. If you see it, it makes sense.
Right. What's the? I'm trying to think of the names. What's the one that's on?
Mike, maybe this is.
Yeah, give me a name.
Zizia. Andrena zizia.
Yeah.
Pictures helpful.
Oh, what do you?
Yeah. So what Claire's got up on the screen are several front wings of several.
Good. I've got it. I've got one too of Zizia, but go with Claire's.
Okay. So look carefully at those two. Well, all of them, and so you see the submarginal cells, and what the first and second submarginal cell are divided by a vein. It's got several different names, but look at the one in the upper, at least in my upper right, that vein that splits submarginal cell 1 and 2 intersects the marginal cell. Intersects the marginal cell.
Yep.
Several vein width differences from the stigma. And if you drop down below to the one right below that, look at the difference. That vein that separates submarginal cell 1 and 2 is much closer to the stigma, and arguably not much more than a vein width. And so that's the distinction. Most Micrandrena look like that second, the wing looks like the one below. It is variable. And so sometimes, you know, there are exceptions, but in general, that's what you're looking for. And if you see that, and it's a small b, it's going to be a Micrandrena. So, and some of those can be pretty common, at least in the Midwest. And they're all spring species. Some of them are specialists. There's a specialist on golden Alexanders. Actually, two species now. And there's some specialists.
Okay. So here's Zizia, and you can see
good. Very good.
There's things are measured in vein width. So there's the vein width, and you can barely fit a vein width between that vein and the stigma, if that. So short. And then, like the other pictures showed, this little section here, the R, whatever that's called, the R vein, R section, is usually much wider. You know, it'd be over like here, and there'd be 4 vein widths or more. So we can go back to the guide here.
And, you know, in the Midwest, there are half a dozen species. I don't know how many are over in your way, Sam. But
we can look at the guide here. Oops.
Sam, I got a message that our guests are coming a little early, so we're going to keep it tight at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
So 22 throughout the country. And if we go up to just do east, we're going to end up there. So yeah, there's the list. And some of these are tricky too. You know, Illinoensis, sometimes like, and Solitaria, like, I'm not sure. And often associated with willow, but a nigre is definitely a willow one, but it also, and some of these have a little metallic sheen, a very sort of Halictus confusus sort of sheen thing. But yeah, they're not super easy.
Yeah, and the tour guides are, you know, they're very smooth, hardly punctate at all. I mean, very smooth without any fascia to speak of. And they're relatively hairless for an Andrena overall. And so they're, you know, there's definitely a vibe for Micrandrena.
Often with big tibia, so widened plant like Personata, I think of, and I think Zizia too. And some of the others are sort of in between, but often tend towards cunate, as they say. Yeah. Okay, we'll flip back here.
So when you say big tibia, you're meaning that they that they're wider than not that they get longer.
Yeah, broadened, kind of broadened apically. Yeah, they get So here, the other couplet at 25, I will apologize for repeatedly, but because what I was trying to do here is to accommodate the variation that sometimes you see in Micrandrena. So that's why there's all this ifs, ands, ors. It's a long couplet. And so, but in general, like we just said, if you got a bee that's 10, 11, 12 millimeters long, it's not going to be a Micrandrena. So you blow past that. There are just a few occasions where you do find things that are small and look sort of like a Micrandrena until you get used to learning what Micrandrena is. So that's what I was trying to do here. I'm not sure it worked out, but anyway, that's so then. And this will be the last thing I think we talk about today. At couplet 26, we need to look at the mouth parts. That's which we haven't done yet. I don't think much. So the subgenus Calandrena, at least the traditional subgenus Calandrena, which is a huge, it's the largest subgenus in the country of Andrena. lots of species all over the place, and all of them specialists on some kind of Asteraceae. But one thing they almost 99.9% of them have in common is a very short, the maxillary palps, very, very short and don't extend beyond the tips of the galea. Well, what's that mean? And it is a really good character, but if you can't see the mouth parts very well or clearly, I mean, it can be frustrating. There are some other characteristics we'll talk about, but if you can see that in the mouth parts, I mean, that's boom. You know, it's really, you know, and if it's associated with Asteraceae, that's another thing, because most of the other ones are not. I mean, the ones follow later in the key. So, and because it's such a big group, there's a lot of diversity in size and shape and color, and you know, it's a fascinating group. Do we have any mouthpart pics?
I'm pulling up Andrena simplex here, but I only have one photo, which, well, let's just spring. So I have to say that I am not a mouthparts person. Mike is laughing because he already knows this. One of the tricks is, so Mike, are you pulling mouthparts on all your bees, some of the bees, Andrena only, you know, like the mouthparts are like here. I can't see any mouthparts. They're all folded and tucked under the hypostomal cavity. I can see sometimes there's some palps, but I don't, you know which set, and a lot of times I can't even see that.
Yeah, I do, you know, if it's an Andrena that I know what it is immediately, like,
yeah,
you know, I don't, but I mean, yeah, I usually do. I usually spread mandibles and pull mouth parts on almost, you know, most bees, unless they're coming out of alcohol, which I can't do that very well, because it provides additional characters and sometimes saves headaches. That's, you know, so you spend a minute under the scope spreading the mandibles and pulling the mouth parts. It might save an hour or more, you know, down the road. So,
and you can't go back and do it later. Right.
It's yeah. You can try, but it's usually disastrous. Your head goes somewhere on the carpet, you know, that's it. So, so the mouth part features it's important if you can see it.
Look at this. There's some mouth parts.
Hey.
Oops. I'm gonna have to. This is terrible on Discover Life. It's hard to really zoom in, but I can go to that.
I think they kind of get the idea with there. If you notice, you know, there's maxillary palps and labial palps. The labial palps pressed up against the glossa usually, but the maxillary palps are usually exposed and kind of dangling, and you can see these don't. Yeah, very good, Sam. These don't reach beyond the tip of the galea.
So there's the galea. And those are often visible folded, but the palps are so, you know, so difficult to deal with if they're not extended.
Right.
And they're often broken.
Yeah, you have to be careful of that too. It's just, this is the traditional, what the subgenus was founded on traditionally, was the mouth parts. And so I just feel obligated, you know, it's when you can see it, I mean, it's great. And the other thing, and you know, as far as a field characteristics, if you're netting, you know, if it's an Andrena on something that's in the Asteraceae, you know, the odds are good to Calandrena. Now, Nemidandrena also are specialists on Asteraceae, but they have a pronodal ridge, and so that's a helpful field characteristic. And
they're also, do all of them? I'm trying to remember. Do all of them have very compound scopal hairs? That's probably not the case, but a lot of these I don't know well enough, and some are, you know, are obscure. But I think a lot of them have. I know a lot of them have, but I don't know if all of them have the, you know, not simple hairs on the scopa, but compound.
Oh, and they also have a complete propodial cavicula, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, you know, we mentioned that they're specialists on Asteraceae, but in general, many of them are specialists on particular genera. You know, there's Andrena kriegiana, which is a specialist on Kriegia, false dandelion, and so on. So it's a really informative group, you know, in terms of that part of the life history, in terms of, you know, plant bee relationships.
Yeah.
So.
Do you see fulvipennis very much in the Midwest?
Very few records.
Okay.
I think there's one record. Yep.
I think of that as a weird sand specialist in July, and I'm not sure what it's feeding on. It's a very cool looking bee, very, very dark wings. And
is it in Maryland?
Yeah, but only in, I think we only have one. I have to look. I think we only have one place, which is in a sand and gravel pit across the river from me, where we found it. And, you know, a lot of people just don't look at that time of year, and like in a sand pit in the middle of summer, it's kind of a hellhole. So anyway, but I found it also in super sandy areas in the sand hills in South Carolina in the same habitat. So I think of it as a sand specialist.
Yeah, sounds right. Well, we'll revisit Calandrena next week because we're running up against the clock here, I guess. So,
right.
And David, if you want to stay and talk, we can do that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and you might mention the mid-basotarsus just as that is pretty obvious sometimes. Did you do that already?
No. Yeah, the mid-basotarsus in a lot of these species is notably broadened. It's not narrow, parallel-sided. It's conspicuously expanded. And it's funny, it's the mid-basotarsus because it's not used for pollen carrying. So it's kind of curious, but that's another important feature.
Okay. All right. So I think Claire and I are going to bail, but we'll just leave this on, Claire?
Yeah, I'm going to stop the recording. I can leave this room open. David, you guys can chat, and I'll come back and close this up later. Just remember you're on the federal video thing.
Yeah, no cussing.
No cursing.
Okay.
It amends it for you.
Okay, thank you, Claire.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys.